For those of you that didn't get the updated news on Grayson Murray, folks, that's the PGA golfer, the US golfer that died very, very sadly on Saturday. We did a video of him on Sunday, and I said at the time I thought it might be, I didn't know, but it may be suicide, only because I'd read he'd had a history of depression and he'd had problems with alcohol in the past. He was a recovering alcoholic, I believe. Yeah, I read some great things about him on the Sunday. And it turns out since his mother's come forward and said sadly that was the case, he killed himself. It's weird really. I mean, he plays a full round of golf on the Wednesday, he plays 16 holes on the Friday, then comes off, says he doesn't feel well, and then within 24 hours he's dead. And it's just a great, great shame. Such a sad thing, because as I said, the reports I've read about him say he was a great fella. But further to that, it's really, I read something only yesterday, I'd not read this over the weekend. It says many of his contemporaries really liked him because he was a fellow that stood up for others, for all he wasn't one of the biggest names in the sport. They say a couple of years ago he had a run-in with Jay Monahan. He's the guy that runs the, is it the PGA Tour in America? I think it is, the US PGA Tour. He's the guy that's got his hands dirty with Live Golf over the last sort of year or so. And they were having a meeting with players, and Murray stood up and said, frankly, Jay, we don't trust you. The players just don't trust you. So many weren't brave enough to say that, but he was. I thought it was great. The downside to that was, at that time, it was at a time when Rory McIlroy was very much on Monahan's side. And he said something like, I believe, I may have this wrong, folks, I read it a day or two ago and I may have it wrong, so forgive me if I've quoted it wrong, but it was something that wasn't very complimentary, very nice. And McIlroy said something like, I think, Grayson, you need to just concentrate on getting your scores down and playing better and leave Jay alone. That was at a time that McIlroy was in Monahan's camp. Very, very soon after, when he realised what Monahan had done to the PGA, he turned his back on him. He did a bit like, he was very much like Noel Gallagher with your man, with who was that crappy Labour Prime Minister we had, Tony Blair. And then all of a sudden, when we seen the real side to Blair, we had old Gallagher eating his words there, didn't we? And I think it's a bit the same with Rory there. But no, Grayson Murray, great shame. Great loss, and a man obviously with some integrity and something about him after I read that. I have had a comment on here today of somebody saying that one of the big US TV channels, they said it was a bit shocking what happened this weekend. Massive wall-to-wall coverage of Murray's sad death, and he said at the same time, I think he said 7 people died in America in a tornado, hardly anything mentioned. Well, I agree with him there, that's wrong. You know, the TV channel, whoever they may have been, probably sensationalised a really, really sad story because he's a golfer and a little bit more well known, and give it even more time than it was probably should have had, and very little or no airtime to the 7 poor folk that lost their lives in a tornado. They'll have had mothers and fathers too, and in fact they may have been mothers and fathers. So I think the TV station did wrong by them there, but still, I only know of the golfer, and I feel very sorry after reading what I've read about him. Great shame.